What is Office 365? It's an integrated experience of apps and services designed to help you pursue your passion and grow your business. Get apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and more, updated monthly with the latest features and security updates. Use cloud-powered email to reach customers and coworkers wherever work takes you. Collaborate in Microsoft Teams, the new hub for teamwork, where you can chat, organize meetings, and share files. Save files to OneDrive with 1 terabyte of online storage, allowing access across devices and on the go. Run your business with the business apps, empowering you to manage customer scheduling, invoicing, referrals, and more, all from one place. Protect your data with 24/7 security and support backed by Microsoft. With Office 365, you have more time to build your business and achieve even more.
All right, it is Friday, May 10th, and you are watching Office Flash Friday. I'm Doug Splinter, joined by
Todd Kidda.
Live from St. Louis, live from Minneapolis. We're still at our split digital sets, but we have everything working in regards to that. Todd, what do you got this week?
I just have a few things. We had Build this week, which was exciting for the dev and data side of myself, which I don't have too much on that, just a couple things from Flow.
I do.
Awesome. I have a couple Power BI, a couple Power Apps in a Flow, and then a little bit about how we're using AI to keep you productive. What do you got?
Wonderful. I've got build, and build. And a little bit of Exchange unified labeling retention goodness, which it was kind of in case you missed it. One of the Exchange engineers released a great blog post on combining unified labeling with message retention policies and managed folder assistant and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm calling that one out, and then and then some teams, and then we're continuing our series. I have my big demo. Which I worked really hard to get going, which is combining Office telemetry with Active Directory in Power BI. And then next week or the week after, you're going to get to do your sprinkling of goodness. Maybe that'll be our 100th show, because in 2 weeks is our 100th show of Office Flash Friday.
Ooh.
Right?
You know, we'll have to figure that one, because in 2 weeks I'll actually be in London. So maybe I have to figure out if I can do this. I don't know. I just sprung that on you, so I have no idea.
We could pre-record it.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, or live from London.
Like that'd be, yeah, we'll figure that one out.
I see no reason why we could not do live from London.
What time will it be? I'll have to figure that out.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. It won't be too late your time. It's only 8 hours, so, or 6 actually, right? The whole GMT minus thing. So why did I say 8?
Time zones.
Depends on where you are, I guess. Okay, so let's get to it. So I wanted to go over the build announcements. Let's cut full screen on this, because this is, this is just awesomeness. So first, on top of it, we did announce all of the edge innovation stuff at Build. If you have not checked this out, it's amazing. Todd and I have both just, I don't know how to say it. This is my favorite browser ever. I was using a competitive product previously.
It's not even out yet.
I understand that, but it's amazing.
It is amazing.
If you have not had a chance to do it, it integrates with different stores, amazing browser experience, just get it done. Did you happen to catch the fluid demonstration of the embedded components and the future of like HTML stuff inside of the keynote?
It was amazing. It was awesome. Of course,
it was awesome. And so they were showing all these, dynamic embedded components. And so the Fluid framework is the future of Office. If you've not seen that, go check it out. It's going to be, and there's some preview stuff coming around. It's going to come out later this year. You'll start seeing those experiences, and essentially makes all the Office applications so dynamically embeddable. So if you get mail the chart, you can have a static version of it, or that embedded chart can be the actual live component. So as people are co-authoring and changing things inside of an Excel spreadsheet that's driven off the chart's updating in real time performantly. So it's amazing. And so we loved the announcements around the Fluid framework on top of it. There was also this whole thing around the new semantic model for an intelligent agent and conversational patterns around how to make more intelligent bots. That was cool. The Office Graph Data Connect. Now, we've talked about this previously, but there's an amazing post on the Graph Data Connect and what you can do to combine those different machine learning models using the Office 365 data. Microsoft Search GA'd. I covered that at the SharePoint users group this week on top of what's going on with Microsoft Search. And so the things you can do inside of Microsoft Search and the announcements around that, we've covered it previously. The difference is it's here. Okay. So, and I know I'm going fast, but my gosh, there's so much to cover this week. The My Analytics components, and also has announced the focus plan, which is actually pretty cool. So if you dive in on that one, it'll essentially make things a little more actionable from an overall standpoint. And so they showed off a little of that for the focus.
So actually, I'll dive into that one in a little bit, Doug.
Oh, are you? Okay. So anyway, so I'll let you roll on that one. So for actionable messages, so we'll roll through that one. And then obviously the AI, the idea in Word, the AI powered editor in the cloud. So you have the, the intelligent suggestion contextually integrated now on the right-hand side in one of those little individual panels. So it says, hey, bring an AI to every employee. We're really starting to see that intelligent suggestion, intelligence, or contextual intelligence that comes through on these tools, and basically really light up the tools in a more intuitive manner. So you don't have to be an expert on these tools. Kind of like how Design Ideas brought amazing transformation over into PowerPoint. This is doing the same thing to your content structure on top of it.
Wouldn't you agree that this is everything Clippy wanted to be?
Everything Clippy wanted to be, but couldn't quite make it.
Yeah,
yeah, maybe so. Okay, so the graph underneath got a whole bunch of announcements on top of it with the Graph Data Connect announcement, the Graph Toolkit, and the Graph Connector framework. Now, these are not flow connectors. These are graph connectors and the connector framework for integration on top of it. They announced the general availability of a bunch of data sets and resources through the Graph Connect, the Azure AD, risky user integration point, the application sign-in summary, the trust framework policy, and the access review request components got released. Amazing stuff, right? Security actions, TL indicators, an amazing set of capabilities on the graph. Not to be outdone, Teams announced all of their platform enhancements from Build. So I went to the Teams blog and there was nothing on it. I'm like, no way, there were all these announcements at Build. They were on the developer blog. And so I have no problem with that being over there on top of it. But remember, if you're looking for platform announcements, you're on the one side. If you're hitting the other one, you're over here. And this one we probably can stay back for Todd and I to have a couple of discussion points on top of it. But essentially, streamlined application lifecycle for partner integration, the ability to sort of pin applications and push things out, the new Teams API for Microsoft Graph, a bunch of code templates on top of it, and then some amazing announcements, two that were of particular interest to me. One was you can now run different applications in the mobile version of Teams. You can embed applications that are directly in it. You no longer have to have a launch tab and either do a slide or a crash out of the Teams application for third-party apps. And the second huge one was they can now take advantage of the Teams credentials so they don't have to crash the user within the Teams window to a sign-on window.
That's awesome.
So, like we always kind of pre-sign into those things when we do demos, right? And it's not so bad for the user because if you are using SSO technology, they just put their same credentials or confirm their identity and then it persists and the cookies work in the background. But what if none of that had to happen? What if a developer could just get the identity assertion, hand it to them directly, and boom, a user gets seamless single sign-on. So they have to take advantage of that, but man, that's a great experience. So amazing announcements coming out of Build.
That's phenomenal. Teams just killing it.
I know. Amazing work. And so I'm just super happy. Like the fluid announcements, whatever it is, the capabilities on top of it, the Edge release, I felt like it was an Office 365 conference, even though it's supposed to be a developer conference.
It did feel a little bit like that, which was a little surprising to me, but I think it was really great stuff.
Now, I had absolutely no problem with all the developer announcements. Azure Flash Friday just lit up on everything else around build and development patterns and the amazing work on that kind of stuff. I just think it's interesting to watch. And I've been telling people in our career path for this for a while, you need to understand the platform because we're going to start making it AI and usable and users going to be able to do self-discovery and have these different components. That's all wonderful, right? But then if you want to upskill yourself to provide relevancy and value for your forward-looking career, you need to be diving into things like PowerShell and Power Apps and Flow, automation layers, Azure Function, how to do things, and the power of Microsoft Graph and the Power Platform. So enough about that. That's the Build announcements. You got any other questions or related things on that you're not going to cover?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, I got two more things I think I wanted to do on top of it, maybe three. First, we did, this is a little more, let's return back to from the aspirational and forward-looking or edgy. Let's return to the pragmatic. Bitlocker. That's a bit of a crash from a topic standpoint, is it? Let's talk Bitlocker. Bitlocker extended management capabilities for the enterprise on top of it. So there's a bunch of new features that are coming throughout 2019 for Bitlocker management for the enterprise, MBAM migration, one-time key use, better reporting and logging. So a whole bunch of announcements around the uplifting of Bitlocker as an enterprise-grade encryption tool. So we've heard a lot of feedback from enterprises on what they want, and there's now an aggressive roadmap for feature delivery inside of Bitlocker, both on-prem managed and in cloud. So the Windows 10 Pro and Enterprise capabilities you own, and maybe you're still with the third-party tool because even though you own the entitlement, you can't quite match your business process. Keep an eye on this. Participate in the user voice community because it looks like they're basically trying to say to people, we want to make sure we have all the peripheral services that you need in order to take advantage of this investment. So that's Bitlocker. Next one. Yeah, absolutely. SharePoint dropped the lists from Excel or other lists. So you can now go create a list from another list. Yep. And it'll basically take the entire list, not the content, and just sort of blow out the entire framework of the list in a different site, which is pretty cool.
Also, that's a common thing.
Yeah, and the list from the Excel spreadsheet and the rest of the stuff. So they showed this at SharePoint conference in 2018, and they're dropping it as a production feature just before SharePoint conference 2019.
There we go.
So there's not a lot of roadmap coming out of SharePoint right now. I wonder why.
When's the SharePoint conference, Doug?
Oh, geez. See, now you're going to ask me that. I don't know.
Right, I'm sorry. I'll look real quick while you're talking.
It's like 2 weeks. I was like the exact date. I don't know. I know all my friends are going to present that, and I'm here, so I know that.
I'm sorry.
Just saying, right? So like I hang in lofty circles of people who are far more important.
May 21st. We got 11 days.
11 days, May 21st. Yeah. So the people I hang with go, but I'm not sad. I go to enough things. I'm all good. But I am looking forward. I'm super excited about the pre-call and the MVP briefings and the rest of the stuff they normally do, so we can get we get 1 day of insider information, right? So people can prepare their content and everything, and that goes to the whole community. So I'm super excited for that.
Build content overload crash, you're going to get the same from SharePoint conference.
I have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to content this week. Okay, so let's move on to our final one. And again, this one's for me, not our final one, mine. Let's cut over this one for a brief thing. I think this is a really important post. And again, much like the Bitlocker one for Solvent, this one's very tactical. And it talks about frequently asked questions on combining Office 365 retention, disposal, and archiving. And what they're talking about is a unified policy around the security and compliance portal and how that interacts with the retention labels and everything, and how they interact with message records management, right? And the managed folder assistant, right? And so they go through all the different scenarios and say, hey, what do you want to have happen? How do these things constructively interact? What's the net for the policy? How is the retention period scheduled? So you can cut back. So again, a very thorough review that I think anyone who is setting retention policies and is starting to explore or is down the road of AIP, classification, labeling, and everything else, needs to be this to understand the rationalization and integration of those things where it matters and where it doesn't matter at all. So it's a really important post, I think, to read to understand how you're going to achieve those combined outcome and where it goes. So I thought it was just a nice, thoughtful review of how those things come together. All right, I am 13 minutes into the show, and I am done with my core announcements. So it's time to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Douglas. All right, now over to St. Louis. So a couple things here from Power BI perspective. So we have a May update of the gateway as per usual, but it's a little beyond just the normal mashup engine update. Actually, I think this is really cool. So to date, when you have your gateway installed and you are monitoring and troubleshooting performance issues, you pretty much had to rely on the core things in Windows, right, to do your tracking of that, so your performance monitoring. So there's three things if you turn on in the gateway config, right? So if you turn on these different values for these three different data sets that get produced, you'll get a bunch of great data. So even just beyond the data that you're going to get around query execution, there's an aggregate report and a system counter aggregate report. Those are the data sets that get generated. We're also including a PBIT file, which is a Power BI template file for Power BI desktop, for you to point at your folder where you're going to download these files, or where they're going to get created rather on your server, and you'll be able to get a bunch of great insights directly out of what's happening. So we're using Power BI to monitor Power BI, of course, which I think only makes sense. So this is, I think, a great, much needed solution, because for a lot of people, the gateway is pretty straightforward for queries that aren't really heavy duty. But if you have a bunch of really heavy duty refreshes or direct query things going on, you're definitely going to want to take a look at this monitoring data and these reports that we're providing. And of course, since you have the data, you can kind of build whatever you want, and we're just giving you this template as a starting point. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you are a Amazon Redshift user, I think one, you should come to the MPC and talk to me about SQL Data Warehouse, but you can now use the first-party connector in Power BI to connect to that data source. So that's pretty cool. And of course, we've updated the engine there as well. So go ahead and take a look. Always operationalize the update of this. I'll beat that drum until forever. So this one I was pretty excited about, not because of just the core feature, but the thoughtfulness and the detail that was put behind what this feature is. So a while back, we announced the ability to comment on dashboards, which is become a very popular feature, and you can @, people, right? So, and you can bring people into the conversation around what's going on in your data. And now we're bringing that to reports. So that's cool in and of itself, great. But check out some of the detail that was put behind this report. So number one, when you comment on a page or a visual, there is a bookmark that's created in that report that essentially when someone comes back and wants to look at your comment, they can click the bookmark. I think there's a screenshot here. So see, if you see here where Adam commented on this report, he's got a little bookmark icon below his avatar picture. What that enables you to do is click on that and then see the report in the context that it was when Adam made the comment. Meaning, Adam may have clicked on a visual and got a cross filter and had some certain filters set, right? So maybe the comment was in context only of North America for a particular product mix. When you click on that comment, you're going to see the same context, which I think was just such a nice touch.
That's great.
For that, yeah, it's fantastic. Not only that, this applies to the mobile experience. Which
I gotta tell you, I
right?
want to chime in an endorsement of the mobile experience very briefly.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. You've been an evangelist for it for a while, and I now have. I took a different role, right? So as a manager now inside of Microsoft, I'm a little more report centric than I was. Oh my goodness, is that a wonderful tool?
Absolutely.
That's all I have to say. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not taking advantage of the Power BI mobile, if you have Power BI, like install the app, log in, and start partying on your data remotely. So being able to @ people is another great thing, and that'll bring them into the conversation, especially that pertains to mobile. So if Doug, I want you to check something out, I'm going to @ you, and you're out at Starbucks or wherever you are, and you're going to get a little notification on your mobile app that you need to like check out what I'm talking about with you. So I think that's a really nice touch.
That is super. I mean, it's super useful for me because if I'm looking at like a scheduling request for the architects now, we have this nice forward-looking dashboard that Todd built for the MTC organization for all these scheduling things. So you're saying if I'm looking at a schedule view for one of the architects, like for Valerie or something, I can just mention the person. They'll get their personal view of that schedule sent to them right away.
Yep, that's correct. I just thought that was super awesome.
That's great.
So here's a nice little reminder, right? So one of the great features of Power BI is row-level security, right? So you're only able to see your data and your reports, and of course that's not going to change if you've set up RLS in your report and your model. But keep in mind that someone can type in stuff right into the comment field that might break that security, right? If someone puts in, well, why did this particular set of products only do X dollars of sales in this region, right? It's humans typing things in, right?
Yep.
So if you are worried about that, you can turn off at a report level the ability to comment altogether. So it's an on-off switch, but I think you can appreciate the fact that we can't do RLS yet against comments. Sorry. Maybe AI will help us with that at some point, but not today. So
too subjective, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought it was more of a nice reminder, if nothing else. If you have a confidential report and you don't want to risk any kind of leakage across data, then go ahead and just turn off commenting altogether on that report. So that was cool. All right.
Cool.
So Power Apps. This one's a quick touch and go. I always beat the drum, and I know, Doug, you're very passionate about this as well, about the work that we do around accessibility. And there was actually a while back, we actually launched the accessibility checker, which for Power Apps. So I think this is a good reminder about that tool that will go and check against best practices. But there's a new white paper we published around accessibility for Canvas apps for Power Apps. So go check this out, read this. It really, if nothing else, it's going to open your eyes if you're not someone who's really given a lot of thought to accessibility and what it means to have an accessible application or accessible experience. It has a lot to do with what's going on with the keyboard and what's going on with screen readers, different colors and things like that. It really is a good eye opener, and it really, I think, even just reading through this will give you empathy for others and the kinds of things that you might need to do, even just when sending emails and creating documents. So I think this is just a great read, regardless. So check it out. I'm glad we're putting effort into this, and I think it's very worthwhile and good work. So I'm excited to see that. All right, here's my build thing, because Flo was at build, and we have some links over to some of the sessions from a build perspective. I think, and actually, I don't remember if I called this out last week. Maybe you can remind me, Doug, since I forget. Did we talk about the connector framework is going open source for this?
Yes.
I think maybe we mentioned that. Okay.
But it's worth a repeat because it's important.
So repeat. The connector framework for Power Apps and Flow is going open source. So you'll be able to create your own connectors and more easily contribute to the broader community of connectors, which is just awesome. And there are some sessions at Build which touched on that, of course. So we go through and we talk about how you can actually, if you have things in Azure, like an Azure function, for example, that's an API, you could actually really easily, through a wizard, add a custom connector that sits on top of that, which I've actually had many, where there's times where I've worked with customers on a Power Apps and Flow hackathon, for example, and maybe there's some extra bit of functionality that we need to create and we need to crash out into code. We can do that with something like Azure.
Yeah. And it's super important because then you can have a developer write you something that you just can't get across the line as an individual contributor,
right.
But you can still consume it as a business analyst, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
Powerful.
So really easy to create a connector on top of that, on top of those things. Some things around ALM and CDS. So definitely check this post out and check out the what's going on with Build. We have some new blockchain things from Ethereum. I know PJ Johnson up there will just be so excited about this. So we'll make sure and talk to him about that. All right, this last one I thought was just a really good, you kind of touched on the new focus plan that we're announcing for all the things around workplace analytics and what we're doing in Office 365. And this is just really thoughtful work, reading through this, talking about putting focus as a priority in your work week.
I did it forever a day ago. We did the 1 minute thing where you did Power BI and I did the My Analytics. What, almost like 2 years ago, maybe 3?
Yeah, about
there's a YouTube in 60 seconds clip somewhere out there of us doing it, and it's treating your life like a personal big data problem. And if you're going to solve a problem, what better one is there?
Absolutely, I totally with you. And when you look at the plan here, and this is like forward-looking stuff that's going to be coming out over the next 3 months, 6 months, those kinds of things. But I think it starts here, right? Where it's like, talk about let's create a focus plan. Let's actually be thoughtful and planful about focusing. So using ML and using the past data about how you work and what's been on your calendar, this will allow you to either kind of automate the booking of focus time on a week-to-week basis, or just sending you gentle nudges, right? I think this is the equivalent of your Fitbit kind of saying, hey, guy or gal, why don't you take a walk, right? You haven't moved.
You're sitting too long. You know what it said to me the other week, and this isn't part of the GA functionality. It said, are you aware that you answer most emails that are sent to you after hours within 30 minutes of their arrival?
Yep. Yeah, I get chastised for that too.
And I was like, what they're basically saying is maybe you want to set aside a little bit of time and not be quite so disrupted in your life. Like you're not, somebody once put up a board, I walked into a meeting and they put on there, no CPA today. And they said, you know what that stands for? And I said, no, they said continuous partial attention.
Oh, yep.
And it really hit home with me. It's like, am I really giving
or something? I don't
know.
Yeah. So, but, so, and then of course that's going to come through on your So this is about how you do this going forward. Here's how you did. We're going to send you reports and let you know how it went. And I thought this one was super cool, right? So here we have a...
Yeah, let's cut over to this one.
Yeah, cut over full screen to this, because we have Isaac emailing Megan saying, hey, can you please do this for me? And then what happens is, of course, the AI is instantly looking at this and saying, hey, Isaac has asked me to do something, so let's get it done. So we can either mark it as done, we can say, hey, this wasn't really a task, try harder, AI, or we can schedule it or add it to our focus time that's already scheduled. I thought that was awesome, right?
Yeah,
because you're creating buckets of time when you're creating this focus plan, and then you're just, throughout the week, things are going to need your attention, and you're filling up that bucket with things to do very in the moment and mindfully. I think this is just awesome.
And you did not, this is a slide, not a crash out, right? You're able to do those things with the new inline approval frameworks where you're able to acknowledge, respond, and act directly from within the context in which you received it. It's not like you got a message and you clicked on it, took you another application and you signed in, or you went over to do and you did some things.
Right.
These are all interconnected.
Yeah, it's super thoughtful, right? I mean, clearly we've spent a ton of time in thinking, like all those things you just said, we're well aware that that's how people have been managing these things since, well, the dawn of time, right? And now we're trying to be really thoughtful in making that super fast, kind of bounce in, bounce out, and get on with your day. So I absolutely love that we're doing this. And of course, this one to me is a no-brainer too. In your focus time, we're going to automatically set your status in Teams to the focus status, which is equivalent to do not disturb. So just awesome stuff coming up. Great work. Doug, I'm going to hand it back to you because I know you have some more.
I do. We're probably going to run like 3 or 4 minutes long, and I think this demonstration and the continued lessons are worth it. You guys can be the judge. So we're going to move back into our class for those who are watching online. So what we said was we want to show you how to build a comprehensive visibility dashboard to Reprise. If you haven't, you can go back to the end of the last the series of shows where we have the notes commented on this. So essentially what we said was we want to show you a comprehensive visibility dashboard where you understand the nature of where people are placing content. And we're going to go after 3 content event sources and 1 identity source. Last 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we said you're going to turn on Office telemetry as source number 1, right? So I asked people to activate Office telemetry. Last week, we showed people how to start a Power BI project and connect to Active Directory domain services, and then get the attributes down you were going to need to be able to, like department, name of the user, SAM account name, user principal name, those core attributes. So if you've been following along, basically you should have had a couple of weeks of data. Now, if you didn't get your data in, I want to take a brief segue, and most of this we can cut over to the full screen on the demonstration here. So I want to cut over to something. Which one is it right here? Aha. So I'm going to scroll around here, and I'm remoting into a bunch of different things to show you people. So what this is the Office Administrative Group Policy, and I've expanded open. So this is the ADM for Office 2019, or it doesn't matter which version this would work. And there's these settings I have activated, and I've linked this group policy to my entire organization, so it's turned on for it. And you'll notice I have turned on telemetry data collection. And that allows Office to gather the data, but it only gathers it locally when you've done that. The second reg key says turn on data uploading, which says not only am I going to gather it locally, I'm going to send it somewhere. And the third value says where to send it. You need all 3. If you don't have all 3, you'll be like Doug yesterday, where I had set this all up and I had no data.
When did you figure that out, Doug? What time
in my Office telemetry server? And so last night, because I wanted to show this all to you, I was like, and a couple of weeks ago, I did a bunch of events and I walked away and I had an empty database and I was irritated. So last night I fixed it. Okay, so step 1, make sure you have your Office telemetry database set and ready to go. Once you have your telemetry database there, let me pop over to here. And then I'm going to show you, I think it's this one right here. Yes, it is. Okay, cool. So we're going to come here into Excel, and I want to show you, this is an example of the standalone local copy of the telemetry database. So you can see right here, it has these events that are written into the spreadsheet on top of it. It says, hey, here's the add-in, here's the file that was opened, in this case, the actual telemetry item itself, right? It says this template was loaded and it came out of Excel, and here's the add-ins. So this is, again, the purpose of Office telemetry was really to help people understand the nature of upgrade solutions and compatibility and system info and all that kind of stuff. we're going to repurpose that data to understand content placement, because these agents are gathering the ambient intelligence from what's happening. They know where these files are being opened from. So then behind the scenes, if you have the upload turned on, this stuff goes into the actual telemetry dashboard. So here is my environment that I have within it. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. You can see, hey, here's the number of data elements that have come into it. But let's drill in. We're going to go ahead and look at the document. So you can see, hey, here's some of the documents I have, the number of users, right? How many successful opens those files had, what kind of add-ins, everything else. All right, so this is useful, but again, we're going to use this data to understand where are people actually saving data, and this data and view is definitely focused on compatibility, which is a great goal, but that's not what we want for this particular event. So we're going to go ahead and take a little tour. And when was the last time, Todd, you were in SQL Management Studio?
Actually, not that long.
Right? Yeah, I was going to say. But if you're not that person, so what I've done here is I've connected into the database. Now, remember, I just used the local SQL Express. You do not have to have a dedicated SQL server for this, although you probably want to if you're, no, you want to if you're a large enterprise. But if you're playing around, you can play around and get started off SQL Express. Check the threshold limitations. Maybe for a mid-size, you could even still use it. But odds are you have a SQL server around that can take some tables. And within there, there's a set of views. I would recommend sticking to the views. You may go after the whole data schema. And there is an awesome Channel 9 video on exactly how to set this up, break it down, and the table schema done by Curtis, who is now a TA, Modern Workplace Technical Architect in the MTC in Denver. And so you can go watch Curtis's smiling face. He's now a member of the MTC team, really breaking that down if you want to. So, okay, I'm just making sure that I have connectivity into it. And notice that I did just do a return rows to see if I'm getting data. And you'll notice that in my particular demo environment, I have the 3 people who have been signed in and doing documents. I have more people, but these are the 3 users. I have the administrator. I also have Dr. Evil and Dr. Phil. Anyway, so I know, but there was the demo environment I had, and I'm like, all right, it's ready to rock. Okay, so I have my couple of doctors in there, I have some stuff, and I've confirmed that I'm actually getting data into it because the spreadsheet's working and everything else. So let's show you what you can do with this then. So all I did was come in, oops, sorry, let me get back to that. I already have virtual desktops. What I did was I came in here, I went to get data, I went to SQL Server. I think I still have the SQL Server name pasted in. I do not. So let's see. I could do recent ones, I suppose. We'll just do it. Let's see. MSP, local, envisioning center. What is the one? TMI 001. Nothing like watching people type server names. SQL Express. And then notice down here we have either import or direct query. We are going to choose which one, Todd?
I think, well, I don't know. What do you want to do?
Well, Active Directory, the connector, does not support direct query type operations. So therefore, I must choose import. And so I think I have typed Minneapolis, local environment, the envisioning center, telemetry server 001/SQL Express. If I don't have any typos, we should be good to go, and we'll connect here in a moment. At least it'll move on and say, hey, yeah, there we go. Okay, so now it might prompt you for your credential box in the middle. Obviously, I still have it. And boom, if you come down here, you'll see, aside from the DBO prefix stuff, there's my views that are exactly there. Now, if you check out a couple of these views, here's our lookup of users, and there's the users inside of the environment, right, for a quick thing. You can look up these solutions that are deployed, which is kind of that view we were looking at before. You can look at the complete inventory, right, which is kind of the core table. Everything else is a lookup against that. So what we're going to do to build our model is we're going to do something pretty simple. We're just going to go ahead and select the inventory table. We're going to go ahead and select our lookup users, and we're going to, just for grin, we'll go ahead and do our computers and why not solutions too. So we've got our different data views that we want to have, and all we're going to do at this particular moment is we're going to load it in. Now, obviously, you can go in and you can edit it. I just wanted to show people a quick exploration of what we're doing. So it'll connect out. It's going to do that. Now, because it's a load operation, it's going to go ahead and go gather that data, bring it back down, and toss it into our model. So we essentially have cached versions of this data. And again, we have to do that because we're mixing these sources. If we wanted to, we could take and stay in direct query. We could synchronize our users over to a SQL table, and then we would not have to do this. We could have that direct query performance if we had a very large established data set. We don't. Now, I took one out of the oven earlier and basically got it ready to go. So I wanted to show you this particular data set. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here. We're going to look at a little bit of table view. On top of this one, you'll notice I have a couple of things over here. I have our Active Directory users from our previous lesson, and I have those exact same columns I took from before. I have the inventory, the computer lookup, solutions, and user lookup. All right. Now, all I did when I brought them in, believe it or not, if you click the manage relationships, the system basically built these relationships automatically because it understands the nature of the lookup relationships. You don't have to do anything for that. I did do one thing. I took the users from the Active Directory, right, the SAM account name, and bound it to the username. So let's take a look at that just to break that one down for people. So if you do the lookup users here, so here's our users. Notice that our user table came in from the Office telemetry service that said, here's the username and here's the user domain. Now, if you remember from our Active Directory lesson last week, we had this Active Directory table that we assembled, had name, department, first, last, title, user principal name, and I just called mine Sam for Sam account name. So here we are with our SAM account names, and what we want to do is tie these account names directly over. So I had to do that manage relationship and simply say, here's my users, and that ties to it. That allows me to take this entire, and you can cut back to Todd and I now, that allows me to take this entire report, and basically now it's bound together. All the Office telemetry data I care about is in there, and through the views, which means if they maintain or update the solution, the views usually don't change. So I can keep that model going forward and keep it fresh. And now I also have all those identities bound together on top of it. So now I can start looking at like departmental data, because nothing in Office telemetry gives you the real human data. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like none of it's in there. And that's why we bought the Active Directory. So that linkage, that last manage relationship link, that's the magic right there. So all you had to do is do manage relationship, right? You add the relationship, and you're going to go ahead and create this one where you're going to take the lookup users, username, to whatever you named your Active Directory column at. So now I had one more thing I had to do to make this somewhat useful. If you look over here on top of the inventory column over here, I created two measures within Power BI that are hanging around on my overall. I wonder if I did this one or the other one. Was it under solutions I did it, or inventory? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Oh, this one I have the other one. Hang on, let me pop over to a different one, because I was getting a couple of these different ones ready for people. Okay, so if we come into the lookup under solutions, there's the solution table that had on top of it, and under inventory, which is our same component, notice they have a file size and the rest of that kind of stuff. So I did two counts I inserted. One is a location count, the other is an inventory count. So two counts are in there. And if you look at the calculations for those, the reason I created them as an inventory count, if you look at the formula for that one, I just said do a distinct count of all solution IDs in inventory. And the other one I did, and there's a reason I did it for location, is essentially the same thing, only I'm counting the actual location. So let's go back and look at the table for once, and I'm showing you why I did that and what insight it allows me to get. So if you come in here and you check it out, you'll say, hey, if we go over to our table on the side and we look at inventory, you'll notice that we have, hey, here's the linkages for user ID and solution ID. You'll notice there's a location over here. Even though I have a ton of entries in here around other things, maybe I am opening from the same location. So I wanted to know, what are my total number of operations, and also what are my number of distinct locations? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Hopefully it does for those following along. And here's what you get if you do all that stuff. I basically then clicked on and said, show me the inventory count. And then I clicked the name from the Active Directory table, and boom, I've got the how many inventory items do those folks have. And then I just clicked on location count. But let's walk through our exercise again. So we know location count, which counts the distinct number of places people are saving things. Well, now let's hop over to our Active Directory. So we're crossing over through that relationship. And let's go ahead and say we want to get the name of the person who did that. So now you'll see here are my three users in the environment, local admin, Dr. Evil, and Dr. Phil. But what if we also wanted to understand the discrete locations that those things are being placed on? Now I've got this. Well, this is a terrible visualization for that kind of data. So let's move it over to a ladder chart and take it across. Now, even though you'd have to zoom in, you can see for local admin, these are all the places that that user is placing data. We could take a departmental view of this data. We could take a user view of this data. So you now know the volume and the amount and placement where everyone is storing their data. Now, next week, and this is where we're going to stop at this point to let the next show come in here and happen. Next week, Todd and I are going to go ahead and show you how to take that super long location data. Because if you look at this one right here, it says, hey, this lives in the SharePoint, my SharePoint file. So that OneDrive. So we should probably roll up everything that's underneath SharePoint Personal and call it OneDrive.
Yeah.
We should spot for C:\user profile /Dropbox, call it Dropbox. We should be able to say, this is my SharePoint Online, this is my team sources. So we want to get away from these nerdy elements and turn them into business constructs instead. And so we have our data. We've tied it together with our identity, so we've shown we can walk the ladder between the identity and back. Now we're going to bring some business data into it, and Todd's going to show us how to basically massage this data so we have more relevancy, so these nerdy names become something that means something to us from a business standpoint. And then we're going to start socketing more data sources in. We're going to get the Office 365 logs. We're going to get some other stuff. And we're going to continue to build this model out as we go forward. So we're trying to honor our commitment to you to say, hey, if we're telling you should migrate toward the cloud, how do you get visibility as to what the heck's going on so you can share it out with your end users? So I know we ran 10 minutes long, but hopefully that was clear. Hopefully it's good. We will take these, I will cut them out and put them into a single video at the end and then publish it somewhere so you can just see like the little snippets of Flash that have these things. So that's it for me for a week. Again, I know we're long. I appreciate everyone hanging with it. Hopefully it was useful information for you. So continue your journey. Connect to those 3 SQL views. Bind it to your Active Directory table with the identity. Add the 2 counts, the one for the summary of inventory, the other for the summary of your locations, and get ready to go next week where Mr. Kidd is going to take over and do a little bit more business alignment on the data.
Love it.
Well, that's it for a extended, beautiful day in Minneapolis, Office Flash Friday. I hope weather is good for you, Mr. Kidda.
It's lovely, man.
Everybody have a great weekend. I'm going to go move my son back home from college for his end of his sophomore year. So that sounds exciting, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
Everybody
take care.
Be safe.
Yeah. Take care. All have a great weekend.